Steven here with Rev'd Up GarageCast. This is episode number 8, I believe. We're rolling right through them. We got a special guest today, Frankie Guy.
Hey guys.
Frank.
We've been anticipating him being on a show and getting him in here. Have Mark and Eddie as always. Today we're going to talk about a few things. You guys always see Frankie Guy online. You see Frankie Guy, the promoter of hardcore demolition derbies. But you don't know the Frankie that comes from our past. He's local to us, so we saw him run as kids. We've seen him be around the sport our entire lives. But I don't even know, how did you get into the sport?
Well, it was family. As a little kid, I watched it and grew up in it as a family. It was something that the family did every year when the fairs come around. And that's how I was introduced to it.
And you said that was your stepfather?
Stepfather, George, yes. The one we did. Fortunately, he just passed away here last Friday. We buried him.
Yeah.
And 83 great years and lots of good stuff. So.
Well, from the look in your eye, it looks like he was a loved man and had a good life. But
very good. And it was a good celebration of life out there. And I told him, I said, thank you for all you did. And the stuff that he introduced me to. I owned Paint Masters and he was a body shop. Yeah. He did Demolition Derby and I did Demolition Derby.
Yeah, and you were telling us his number he ran reflected what?
The OK. OK was the Ostrich and Kalesar. That was their two last names, which represented OK Body Shop.
Okay, where was that at in this area?
Locally, actually, it's dead between Uniontown and Brownsville on Route 40.
Okay.
Smack
Yeah.
Sea Rates Crossroads.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, he ran the red, white, and blue cars, the OK, and we were talking about what he ran, and you were getting into a story about suicide?
Yeah, one of the relatives had the old Sueys, and I mean, they ran them in T-Birds. Then I remember the old Oldsmobiles and cars and stuff that he ran, and then when they got into the Imperials back then, I'll forget, we went somewhere, and I was a young kid, and he had wanted an Imperial, and there was a bunch of guys on the side of it trying to lift it up to see what was underneath of it. But it was so big and heavy that they really couldn't lift it.
So this is a question I often wondered, and now it just finally came to fruition on the show. Back in those days, did they look at 70s cars like the guys look at 80s cars now? Like, were the 60s cars like a completely different breed, and then you're bringing the 70s cars in and they were underbuilt? Or, I mean, the 70s cars, a lot of them were structurally hanging in there with the 60s? Because, I mean, if you had an Imperial...
Yeah, the 70s cars really, I still think even when they still did better than the 60s, and I think that's just because of the nature of the crash testing. When you got into the mid-70s, if you look back, that's when the 5 mile-an-hour bumpers and the big shock absorber type things.
Yeah, so they weren't even changing the bumpers on the 60s cars at that point. They were running them 10 bumpers on the Imperials.
Right, there was still the old...
That makes sense.
The old stuff, so they still, when 70s did show up.
So, this was before our time, any three of us here.
Right.
Yeah. Was there any Derby guys' names that we would remember from back when your stepfather ran? Was there some families that were in it back then?
Zeok.
Oh, I know Zeok. I know. Starbutzel. Their boy ran a few times that I know of.
Yeah, the nephew still.
He was running when Croucher had the show and stuff.
Yeah, he even ran. I can't remember his last name.
They're over on Old McCullentown Road.
Yes.
Yeah.
But those were some names. Croucher.
Yeah, Croucher. Yeah. But
Croucher, Eddie, and the boys. Eddie and Bob was a fierce.
And that was Hersix back in the day had that, or who was what was the name of the promoter?
The promoter.
Yeah.
George Marshman.
Marshman, that's what
yes. And when you talk about every year when George Marshman came to Fayette County, and back, I don't know if you guys know where I put where I put the trailer and things in the front.
Mm-hmm.
Before all the grandstands and everything was there was a little wooden platform, and that was where they announced from. And me as a kid, again, for whatever reason that George Marshman took to me as a kid, and there was poles and there was logs right there. there was a little cherry bomb that they used to hang over the log, and at 6, 7, whatever, I was the kid that took a 9-volt battery, and when George Marshman said go, I touched it, and that little cherry bomb went off. So sitting at that age, impressionable age, not only dad running, but me. Now I'm the
you
kid.
just had to do it.
The kid that sets the cherry bomb off at the fairground. Like, when are they coming back? I mean, again, I couldn't. Just wow.
What age were you when you first ran?
I was probably, it was 1984, 85, so I was probably 15, 14, 15.
Okay.
Yeah, 15.
No youth class back then.
No youth classes.
Now back then, did they make you sign the waiver and all this stuff?
Yeah, and again, my first show was with George Marshman. It was even before Croucher, and then they had a looked like a little credit card size thing that they stapled on your sleeve. And I meant, like, how cool is this? Because, like, my sleeve says driver. And then on the ticket it said driver.
Did you know it was logs at Fayette for a long time?
You know, I've seen
Yes,
old
logs.
pictures and videos. Like, I've seen pictures like of the '80s and late '80s at Fayette Fair. Man, it looks nothing like it.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
couldn't. I know when my dad started, I think he ran once in '89 when he was a baby, and then '92 when I was born was the first year he started really running. Did they still have the logs then, or had it switched already?
No, I was
The logs still?
Yeah.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
I remember the late '90s battling the championships and the falling asleep. That's what I remember from when he ran. I was young, so.
Staying at the Derby till 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Well, I always remember I had my Grammy there. Then she would always had a little cooler that she'd bring with us, and I remember like falling asleep during the feature, and I'd always watch for the smoke rings coming out of the headers, because that's how you knew they were getting really hot when I was little. So like I'd be in and out of sleep, and it'd be getting down to the end, and I'd watch to see which one was starting to get hot, because I mean they were battles. They weren't.
Sure, I remember 4, 5, and 6 heats of 30 cars.
Yeah. I mean, back to the hot thing. I remember back then you were like, "Oh, he lost his rad. He's screwed.
He's
You know what I mean?
done.
He's gonna get hot." Now they blow the rad. They'll still run an hour and a half.
Right.
Depends
You
on
know
the
what I mean?
engine.
Yeah. Right?
So
It's just evolved, man.
one thing we wanted to touch on was Hardcore schedule this year, since Frankie is the Hardcore dirt promoter. On May 13th, he has the Compact show, the 3-man team show, with I believe he's running a bunch of full-size classes there, it looks like.
Yeah, with the addition of Chris Furster, Jonathan's still taking care of our compact stuff, and Furster, we have that Dominator class, which is, what they put in there is, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to skin a cat.
Right.
Between a protector, a kicker, under a belly bar. Some of the stuff's even over my head when they were discussing it. But it's been a real nice surprise. The registration's staying strong with that car, and I surmise probably at least a 15-car field for that $5,000 to win up there with those kind of cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you're heading to Jacktown, which you guys didn't have that from the beginning and just got it back recently. It was down. It didn't have derbies for years.
Correct.
I remember as a kid going and watching the cars run up the hill.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm hoping that there's no shows on that date, because I've always wanted to run there.
Yeah. Jacktown has been a Greene County favorite. You talk about old times, the Jaegers and the.
I might need some backup then.
Their dads.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I remember the Jaegers and the Staggers.
Tony Staggers.
Yep.
And the Jaegers and them climbing that hill. And like I said, when they get up, they would just almost be out of your sight. So when you went down, you better have the driver's side facing that hill, so that you could see. Because if not, they was coming off of there. And let me tell you, man, they nothing's different. It was still a Jaeger bomb back then.
Greene County. Greene County is the next one after that. Speaking of Greene County,
Yeah.
that show is always a hard hitting show.
Oh my goodness.
Cross that bridge. You better
what
bring
you
back
get when
up.
you
That's all I gotta say.
Get there early, because they pack that place.
Yeah.
I've had Yeah, you go there.
Mark actually didn't want to go, I believe, last year because he gets so frustrated when he can't see the Derby.
Yeah.
And if you know me, I'm like, if the Derby's at 7, I'm showing up like 5 minutes till. So
Well, the thing was, the year before that, I think it was the first year or second year Hardcore had it. I showed up, paid my way in. There was nowhere. You couldn't stand. You couldn't sit. And I was like, I went home.
Right there.
I swear.
It's been good out there.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely fill the seats.
Right.
moving back into Washington, you got 2 nights of there still, which they always get a pretty good turnout, especially with the stock compacts.
Yeah.
Then you're moving back to, you got Stoneboro again, the Labor Day lockdown, which that's probably one of my favorite fairs to attend. I mean, everything about it, the
Atmosphere.
the food, the atmosphere. I mean,
The tracks.
You're-
I love Fayette because it's here, but
It's home, yes.
Stoneboro's it gives you that
Stoneboro.
small town.
Man, oh days,
Fair.
there's just, I don't know what it is about there, but even officiating, I watched Val and everybody and all the people, the girls. It's just like a different feeling.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, they're dancing, they're having fun. It's like the seriousness, the edge.
As an
is off.
official, my best memories are probably when I got to stand on that stage.
That's
That's
Yeah,
one of my
it
favorite
is.
places to be in
Yes,
all
that
the Derby
stage.
world.
I remember the first time we went up to Stoneboro. First time I went, and that's when Hardcore got it, 2019, right?
Yeah.
And
Would we sneak you up on the
I
stage?
stood
or
on that
something?
stage and watched it, man. Oh,
It just,
There's
the
something
sou-
about
the
it.
sound bounces off
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
being in between there, and it's one of those places. There's no place to hide. It's
but I know
Stoneboro.
if you're driving in that show, you better stay away from that stage.
The kill zone. Casey Smith calls it the kill zone. Don't
Right.
get the kill zone.
No.
So then you're headed from there back to West Alex, and that's
Yep.
a 2-day event as well. That place always it's just West Alex
It's
as well.
West
Like,
Alex. The
you-
battle, the biggest little fair you ever go to.
yeah, other than Jacktown, I mean, every show on your schedule is just one of them shows that like they're gonna get people, they're gonna get cars. It's just a good fair.
Yeah.
Hopefully Jacktown can get a little bit of a resurgence from in the past.
That town was good last year. I think we ended up
Yeah,
almost over 30 some cars.
I know you had a pretty good full size heat.
Well, yeah, then they had
I
the
didn't get
addition of
to,
those Hammer awards. I think we paid 1,200 Hammer.
Oh yeah, Corwin helped out
Yeah,
on that, and
Corwin,
it
yeah,
worked out
Chad
really
and
well
them
for you
guys.
guys. I forgot about that. I didn't get to go.
Yep.
Then the championship, obviously the 7th and 8th. I mean,
Yeah.
you've never had a problem there. Do you have any information for us on that yet, or keeping the mouth shut?
Yeah,
Dang it.
I'm stewing. I'm gonna stew there a little bit yet.
I was trying to sneak that one in.
Well, Rev'd Up likes little surprises. We like getting
Yeah.
little first scoops and stuff.
Maybe if I tell him TJ gave us a surprise, as Frankie will do it.
The hardcore and
I'll just advertise that you gave us information,
There
and
you
then
go.
when they listen to the whole thing and they're like, "What the heck were you talking about?" Be like, you didn't listen good enough. Listen again."
the hardcore compacts and the light weld Warrior will be my 2 main classes, with the rest of being fillers now. I just throw it around, and I want to keep the purse as high as I possibly can. The problem with that is people, cars, and other derbies, things like that. So before I stick my neck out too far in the line,
You're gonna bite yourself.
No problem.
I want to make sure.
So speaking of cars and the prices, back to a time when you were able to get cars significantly cheaper.
How much was an Imperial back then?
Well, I think I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask. What was your favorite Derby car to run?
Well,
I think I
it's
know.
definitely 74 or 3 Chevrolet station wagon.
Now you said 3 or 4.
Well, I used to. I guess I could say it, but I used to take the 5 and 6 horns and put on the 2, 3, 4s, because the back end is bolted differently on the 4s.
So you
It is
mean
on
to
the
tell
5 and
me
6.
Frankie Guy was a cheater?
I didn't say I was
do
cheating.
that.
He didn't say he was
Yeah,
cheating.
I heard it as a
How-
kid, but I never believed it.
But
So
I mean,
how did you mount them horns?
well, we'd ground them off the 5 and 6s, the piece that accepted the shock, because the older 2s and 3s were just bolt-ons. And I would just take the bracketry off and take the 5 and 6 and stuff and put on. So now I felt I had the better front end, shock system.
Now
And
the
the
back
motor.
end didn't have
Didn't have the boxes for the sub.
Yes.
So now those were the ones that would kind of, I call them D9 or flatten out like a dozer blade, as opposed to one to dip on the ground.
well the bumper mounts into the body and it's just a shell sort of, and it definitely reacts differently.
Yes.
It'd be nice to know then what you know now, ain't it?
Oh my. I say that about compacts just within the past 10 years. I mean,
past 5 or 6, really.
Yeah, at one time.
You're always a little bit after all of us.
Yeah. It was at one time I owned 27 Leaf Spring GM wagons. 27.
Now you could retire.
Oh, yes. You could just say, and the stuff we threw away that wasn't done because we had more, and it was just an endless.
I mean, smashers are going for $5,000. Good solid projects are going for 8 to 12.
Yes.
Drivers are going for 15 to 40. I mean, the prices are through the roof on them things.
Yeah, one of my things going back is I always wanted to start with a good car. I didn't mind paying a little more for a better car. And then, of course, we started thinking about down south. And I'll never forget Thanksgiving Day. Croucher calls, says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm eating Thanksgiving dinner." He said, "You want to go to Georgia and buy some cars?" I was like, "Sure." He said, "When do you want to leave?" He said, "About an hour." I said, "Let's go." So, I mean, I had done some homework myself. So I remember Thanksgiving evening, we're rounding the Beltway in Atlanta, headed to the junkyard to buy
that
cars.
sucks there.
Yeah.
The Beltway
Like
is
12,
terrible.
14 lanes.
Well, being Bob, he didn't make it the way to Morgantown or wherever he was sleeping, and I took it the rest of the way down.
You remember the town name by chance? Any of them from down there?
No, I have pictures.
I got a lot of cars out of Georgia. Well, not a lot, but I got a lot of bumpers and wheels and pulled some out.
Now, what am I saying, George? We ended up, it was Alabama, Birmingham.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Birmingham. Alabama is where we ended up going to. And I remember I have some photos that I took of, and it has the name and the phone number of where we were. And it being Thanksgiving, someone was open and closed, but the one guy was closed, but came and that I had been talking to and opened up, and we got some serious shells out of there. Man.
Yeah, I mean, getting on the name Bob Croucher, that was one of your best friends growing up, right? I mean,
best buddy, best in my wedding. The tour of '94.
And speaking of the wedding, you had the ice sculpture of a derby car, correct?
Yeah, we rented that fancy place with all the fancy flooring and all that. And the lady, I never forget when she said about the ice sculpture. That was actually the present that Michelle bought me. I didn't know about it till I got there, but she had somebody come down, and the lady said, "We've had swans and we've had this and we've had that, but never a '75 Chevy wagon."
That's a good gift.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was awesome.
Going even a little bit farther, if you had to pick one memory from all the derbies you ever ran, what do you think was your most memorable derby moment before promoting?
Before promoting was definitely, I drove derby cars for 20-some years. One of my nemesis, and I'll tell you, it was always Dan Trent. And Danny Trent beat me 95% of the time. But I was the one guy that would want to go over and rattle his cage. Most of the time I come back and my car looked like a TP.
Yeah.
He had a good car. Mark Dwayne always had a really good car, nice car.
There was a lot of great people that I wrote down. But the championship that I won at Bob's of 10, 12, 15 tries, top 5, second, third. One time I got second because Michelle was going to drive the next day and her head gasket was blue. I spent the whole night putting head gaskets on her car, and I forgot to wire tie the hose on my gas tank, and it came loose.
So what year was it that you won that?
I believe it was 2005, but the funny part is the year before they said I was cheating again.
You just admitted you
No.
were.
And they
Is that
threw-
the infamous door plate?
That was the infamous 2x3 patch heard around the world. I called that the patch heard around the world. It was anyway. A guy from the minivans actually protested me in a full size car.
That's interesting.
Yeah, But she actually won the year. That was the year they told me I couldn't run, and we went from full size, at least big GM wagons welded up, everything that at that time the best we had, to 80s chain and radial DOT tires. He changed it in the middle of the season.
Oh wow.
That finale was 80s chain and bang and DOT tires. But
Michelle ended up winning that year.
Michelle won. Yes.
Does she have one too, or
Yeah, she won. Yeah, that
Just
was
one.
just one.
How many times did it take her?
less than
A lot
Frankie?
less than me. A lot less than me.
Maybe we should have Michelle on a show.
Just getting there that time, because you had to be a feature winner. It wasn't just you qualified and you showed up once. You had to been that guy.
Now, when you won it, you remember how many cars were in the heat?
44. That feature had 44 cars. 40 of the 44 were Lee Spring GM wagons.
Oh, man, that was something to see.
1 hour, 28 minutes long. The last.
That bad.
I was young enough where I can't remember.
Winning it or having a win earlier in the season got you straight into the feature.
Yeah.
That was the advantage.
Yes.
They still had heats that got you in.
Of course, they had they call it a business heat.
That was the buy-in heat, right?
That was the buy-in heat.
It was always a higher entry, so there was always less cars.
Yes, so you could be in the top 3, and I think believe it or whatever.
Bob Croucher was a very smart businessman.
Yes, that was the business heat.
I remember Homer running that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first time I ever was knocked out
Ooh.
in a derby car.
How'd that happen?
As I've learned, you hear me preach today, if you're going to give that guy the drivers, they'll be able to deal with it. I gave John Grace, God rest his soul. I said, he's not going to take, at an angle. I mean, it was the perfect, no way I'm going to take that shot angle, and there's no way he's going to hit me. No way he's going to hit me. Well, it just kept, next thing I know, I was looking at the roof of the wagon, and I'm trying to reach for the starter button, and next thing I looked up, I seen Scott Goodwin on my hood. And he's like, we're ripping the floor. He hit me so hard that it bent the floor up underneath the gas pedal. And that rocked my world. I mean, I see the spark, and that was the last thing I remember.
Pulling the doors back in the day, too.
So did they throw him out on that shot, or did they do that back in the day?
There were a lot of driver's door calls. I mean, they were probably harder back then than I am today about knowing about pulling doors.
Yeah, because you ran in a time where they didn't even suggest that you hit head to head.
Right, you were. Yeah, that was in the rules. You weren't even
Not until the end, correct? The last cars,
Yeah,
or
you weren't even supposed to hit nose to nose.
yeah. Did you know that, Eddie?
Yeah, no
Back
front
in
to
the
front
day.
contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, the angle at front or angle, but yeah, it's definitely changed.
And they say our generation's a sensitive one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they deemed that hit 50-50. A post shot. And he did not, they didn't do anything. So I finished the heat.
So when you had one championship, who all did you end up beating that? You said,
Oh, wow. In that heat you had, and when we talked about some names in that heat, Steve Siopa, Mark Siopa, Dan Trent, Keith Colvin, Scott Goodwin, Todd Flack, McAdoo, Walkers, Christ, Mark Dwayne, Timmy Jumper, Charlie Malloy, you name it.
they were there.
That time, yeah, that was the best of the
See,
best.
my dad had actually already quit by then. He went to dirt track in, I believe, 02-ish.
Right? I remember the story I had with your dad was he was in a black and white checkered LTD,
Mhm.
and it was, I believe it must have been, I don't know, but it must have been one of the HDs or what they call
It
that.
was a cop car, so
Okay.
we're not sure, but
All right, listen, I remember I'm in a big old wagon. We're down to the last 2 or 3 cars, and Stevie's dad, and I hit that Ford thinking, well, just another boom. And I looked, and I remember my bumper, like the tailgate pushing in, and I pulled away, and there was, I was like, wait a minute here, man, what's going on, you know? But ultimately, you know, in the end, it just like they didn't do the bumpers and all the other things that they do the Fords now. And I've always said about Derby cars, you want to go back, it wasn't what maybe the Imperial was or the Leaf Spring GM wagon or what the Ford. It's what we made them.
I think he ran that car, and it was not too far into the 90s.
Yeah.
It was so.
But I remember that car distinctly.
Yeah, he said that was a good car.
Yeah, see, yeah. I mean, I remember hitting it hard with a wagon, thinking you just gonna just push it to
See,
the back
he told
door.
me a story. He also, well, you end up finally getting that win.
Yeah.
At the championship, he has a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, which they paid down 5, gave 5 beautiful trophies. That was
Right.
one good thing about Crouchers.
Yeah.
He never got that win. Now, I believe you were involved in this story. Did you end up getting second or third this night? If you remember the story, he said he thought he had the win, and then you came out of the. It was maybe you, him, and Cuppet. Does that make sense?
Mikey Cupboard's another one, yeah.
Did he win the championship one? Or there's a story that I know you were involved in, another guy, and he thought he had the championship one finally, and he said you guys broke free, and maybe it was it might have been Mark Dwayne.
Might have been Mark Dwayne or me and Cuppet was stuck together.
I don't think you won. Whoever the other guy was won, and I can't remember if you ended up getting second or third that time. I'd have to have him here to tell me the story.
I mean, I was literally second, third in the top 3, or 15 times. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
See, I think he told me. Did you beat him tonight with the Crown Vic?
The night that he was in.
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't remember?
I don't remember. There's been, they asked me who won the most features at Fayette.
See, he took that Crown Vic back even again, he said, and I know he got one win and a second on it, however it went either way. But I mean, that was stock 302 everything. There was nothing special about that car other than
back in the day. There's some cars. We've had one car that's won all 3 nights. What me and Scott Goodwin would do is I'd run it the first night. We'd take it back. He'd black the door, put it on, run it the second night, win with it. Then I'd take it back, black the number off, put my number back on, and win the third night with the same car.
Well, a lot of time them derbies back in the day, you were taking out tires. Tires were big. And then they didn't take the heat. So if you had a good engine and you kept it cool, most of the time them GMs were going to take the abuse as far as the wagons.
People say things now, I remember in 2005, I rode into that arena in 2005. I probably had a little over $10,000 in that car in 2005.
What a pay.
3,500.
You felt like you hit the lottery when you won that 3,500.
3,500 was big. I mean, we were talking 300 or 400 for. Yeah. But you know what? I built it for 3,500 as I did for 300. I'm sure just as you guys do now.
Oh, it's to that way now.
If it's 1,500 or 15,000, I never determined how. Matter of fact, I still even got some checks that I never cashed to Bob's because he signed them, and I just always it's weird to have them hanging in my office.
I can't tell you how many times, especially chasing points, people would be like, "What's this show pay to win?"
Don't even know.
I know how much fuel it took to get here, but I don't know about how much it pays to win.
Right.
Definitely not in the sport to make money.
Not yet.
No.
I don't know if it'll ever get to that point, but
Not the way it's going.
No, major sponsors. I think there's a lot of reasons there. That's a whole nother show. Well, maybe on the promoter part, I can put my spiel in there. But yeah, it's tough getting the payouts and the purses just on the promote. the promoters have to go through in hoops to get it done. But you guys are lucky. There's a lot of good ones trying their asses off, and especially on a local. I give TJ a lot of credit too. I mean, he's coming. There's a lot of promoters that have stepped up and really trying hard to do the right things. There's some bad ones. There's a lot of good ones too.
There's a lot of good promoters, but
I think a lot of the bad ones sort of sort themselves out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If I had to talk about anybody, Frankie's heart is in the sport. Like it's.
Oh, he eats, sleeps.
Yeah, it's.
I don't think he works at Paint Masters anymore. He's just physically there.
Teddy running the show down there.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken a toll on all of it. I mean, it's become I say 8 days a week. I do something or have something to do or talk about or deal with Demolition Derby every day of my life for the past 40 years.
Now, say if you were to cold turkey quit, what would you do with your life? Go back to trying to hunt?
Be going to Saskatchewan.
No, I miss Saskatchewan. Don't get me started there. That was a good time. It's a little chilly up here at -47, but that's when the big ones move around.
That's right.
I don't know what I would do. I have a motorcycle I haven't rode in 4 years. I used to enjoy the motorcycle rallies and have fun doing those things. Chillicothe is more than just a bash for cash. Let me tell you, there's a rodeo.
There's a different Sturgis too. Everyone always says Sturgis Bike Show, and I'm like, I got a Sturgis every year. Redneck Rumble.
There's a few things out there, right? That so I don't know what I do. Being involved in it in some way. I mean, it's been, like I said, in some way, fashion and form, 40-some years.
Yeah.
I officiated 18 years. The Pontiac Silverdome Derby with Bob, Destruction Productions. I mean, I ran Ohio, Randolph, Carrollton, Luray, Virginia, you name it, up the east.
So what's the furthest derby you ran away? Like, far away?
That I drove in?
Yeah.
Boy, I don't know where did I go. So I think I won a couple derbies in West Virginia that are probably a couple hours or better away. I've won Mannington. I won Maryland, the Deep Creek.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably my best win.
Some of the ones in Ohio had to be farther than that.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever ran in Ohio. Me and Bob.
Oh, I thought you just said you just went to him. Okay,
yeah. I know. I've driven. I won in Maryland. I won in West Virginia. I won a bunch of derbies. Just seems like I had very good luck the first time. Every time I went somewhere, the first time I won.
And then after that,
Can't beat that.
That was just a good thing.
Well, then you came back and they knew your name.
Well, there are some places that they told me not to come back. That's okay.
You got to respect that.
Yeah.
It definitely sounds like Bob was by your side. I mean, running. He was running with you too?
Yeah, we were going to try to promote the Derby in Masontown, West Virginia. So I took a wagon and Bob took always junk, whatever he had. And we went and we figured we'd run the Derby, get to know the people and the drivers. You earn some of that street cred if you're the guy that just won the Derby and you're the next promoter. Well, it turned out that he come down to me and one of the local yokels who happened to be firemen and he kept me pulling the driver's door. Finally, I jabbed it, and they told me to hit him because I was running out of time. But I was between two cars, and they wanted me to hit him. And then when I hit him, they threw me out for the driver's door. Oh man! I come out through the front window. I'm a very laid back guy.
Blood pressure through the roof.
Security. I said, please don't send the old guy at the gate. Oh man, Bob's like, stop. We want to promote this show. Well, we never did get that show, but they definitely know who we were.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna wrap up episode 8, Rev'd Up GarageCast. We're gonna be right back with Frankie there talking about some promotions. Rev'd Up out.